The rain had been falling for 9 straight days, a cold, relentless drumming that found every fissure in the observatory's 100-year-old dome. Water streamed down the inside of the copper ribs, pooled on the concrete floor, and ran in rivulets toward the drains that had clogged sometime during the Clinton administration. Dr. Mara Voss didn't notice anymore. She moved through the puddles in mismatched boots, one black, one the faded purple her husband had bought her in Prague the year before everything ended, her attention fixed on the single photographic plate trembling between her fingers. The plate was warm from the darkroom lamp. She had developed it herself, alone, at 3 in the morning, because no one else was left to help. The astronomy department had cut her funding 2 years ago. The university had reassigned her graduate students. Even the janitor had stopped coming upstairs once he realized she never left. So it was just Mara and the telescope in the rain, night after night, chasing a ghost in the data that every referee dismissed as instrumental artifact. She carried the plate to the ancient console beneath the dome's center, the one with the cracked bakelite knobs and the smell of hot dust and ozone. The overhead fluorescence flickered like a dying heartbeat. She laid the plate on the light table and leaned over it, breath fogging the glass. There it was, not a star, not a comet, not a glitch, a disk, gray-blue, marbled with white spirals, edged by the unmistakable glare of sunlight on water. A planet where no planet could be. At L3, the Lagrangian point directly opposite the Sun, the one place in the solar system that had always been empty because gravity itself forbade anything to linger there. Textbooks said it was impossible. Stability analyses said anything caught in L3 would drift away within decades. Yet here was a world the size of Earth, perfectly centered in the frame, its limb sharp enough to cut. Mara's knees buckled. She caught herself on the railing, metal ice cold against her palms. The room tilted. She tasted copper. She had bitten her tongue without realizing. 12 years ago, on a night much like this one, Daniel had dragged her up here with a bottle of cheap red wine and a stolen key. He had pointed the telescope not at Jupiter or the Orion Nebula but at the exact anti-solar point, the place where the sun's glare rendered everything invisible. "There's something wrong with empty," he had said, laughing, already a little drunk. Empty should feel empty. This feels, watched. She had kissed him to shut him up, and they had made love on the freezing floor while the dome motors whined overhead like lonely whales. 3 months later he was dead on a kitchen floor in Pasadena, blood pooling beneath his ear while she screamed into a telephone 3,000 miles away. After the funeral she came back here and started looking where he had looked. First with the 24-inch refractor, then with every spare hour on bigger scopes she begged, borrowed, or broke into. She wrote algorithms to subtract glare, to peel away zodiacal light, to tease a signal out of noise that looked exactly like nothing. Colleagues stopped answering her emails. Her mother stopped asking when she was coming home for Christmas. The smudge in the data became her only companion, patient and silent and always just beyond reach. Until tonight, she straightened, wiping her face with a sleeve already soaked. The plate showed continents she could almost name. The Horn of Africa, but severed along the Rift Valley as though someone had taken a knife to the planet and split it open. An ocean where the Sahara should be. Ice at both poles, but the southern cap larger, distorted, heart-shaped. And cities, no, not cities, but something regular. Geometric, glinting along the night side in threads of cold blue light. Mara laughed once, a cracked sound that echoed off the dome and came back smaller. The rain answered with a gust that rattled the skylight panes. One of them had shattered years ago, she had never replaced it. Water poured through the jagged hole now, a steady silver rope that struck the floor 10 feet away and splattered like applause. She walked to the transmitter she had built in secret, soldering late into the nights while listening to the same 3 songs on repeat, songs Daniel used to sing off-key in the shower. It was crude, cobbled together from surplus ham gear and a Navy dish she had bought at auction with her widow's benefits. Enough power to reach the moon if she focused it right. Maybe farther. Her hand hovered over the switch. What would she even say? Hello, we killed our best people with loneliness and deadlines and never fixed the roof. Hello, I loved someone who saw you first and now he's gone and I'm still talking to the dark. Thunder rolled directly overhead, close enough to rattle her teeth. The lights flickered out entirely, plunging the dome into absolute black broken only by the red glow of standby LEDs. In that darkness the rain sounded like a crowd shouting her name. She closed her eyes and saw Daniel's silhouette against the open dome slit, wineglass raised to a sky that had always been empty. Mara flipped the switch. Deep in the console something woke with a low hungry hum. Vacuum tubes glowed cherry red. The dish motors outside groaned against years of rust, turning for the first time in a decade, aligning themselves with a point in space no human instrument had ever deliberately targeted. She leaned into the microphone, voice raw. "This is Earth," she said. "We're here. We're late, but we're here." Static answered, thick and velvet. Then, faintly, like a single violin finding its note across a canyon, a carrier wave replied. Not random, modulated, searching. Mara smiled through the water on her face. Rain, tears, she no longer cared, and began to transmit everything she had never said aloud. Coordinates, music, the sound of her own heartbeat. The way Daniel used to say her name when he thought she was asleep. Above her, the storm cracked open for one impossible moment. Moonlight poured through the broken skylight and painted the telescope in silver. And high overhead, crossing the lunar disk with impossible grace, a slender silver needle of light rose from the horizon of a world that had never been alone. Mara raised one shaking hand toward it, palm open, as if she could catch the signal in her fingers.